your offers on market, you're trying to be
as competitive as
appealing
possible.
and competitive as possible. Normally, your offers are going to be a little bit lower.
As an investor, yes.
If you can remove as much contingencies and make the offer clean and close very quickly,
yes,
then you're going to be more competitive in the pool of offers.
How do you make an offer on the MLS, the multiple listing service?
I like this question. I feel like it has been put out there, right? Since we've been in such a competitive market that there are no deals on the MLS.
Yeah, and we say all the time, hit up your realtor. Don't sleep on realtors. There are deals on the MLS. That's how we got our first ones.
Right. But all of that being said, as we are seeing this change, I feel like there's going to be a lot more opportunities on the MLS.
I agree with that statement.
So
thoroughly.
How do we frickin' find them? And how do you write an offer?
I feel like you have to be looking, number one, right? Can
100%.
you look on your own, or do you need a realtor?
Well, the one thing about the MLS is only realtors have access to it.
But what are public accesses to the MLS but aren't called the MLS?
I mean, there's all kind of softwares. Zillow,
Redfin,
Realtor.com.
Yeah. Those are technically any realtor that lists a property on the multiple listing service that only realtors have access to also list their properties on a public domain that the public has access to through those platforms that you just mentioned.
Right. So, okay. But how do you write an offer? How do you put an offer in? I think there's a few different ways that you can do that, right?
So you find a property, whether it's through a realtor or it's through those public access forums. The first thing you can do is, if you have a realtor, say, yo, I want to write this offer. Here's my offer price. You have to determine how much of an inspection period you want. Oh, this is such an intense question.
Yeah, and I think it's so layered because...
It's so layered.
Right.
Okay, so a couple of things, right? You need the inspection period. I need to write this down as I'm...
Okay.
Inspection period.
Because before you even get to the actual nitty gritty of it, right?
Yeah.
You're going to need a lot of things before you get to that process, right? You need to...
Touche.
Right? You
Touché.
need to understand what a deal looks like. Mm-hmm. You need to understand how to underwrite a deal. And you can check out this video here for all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But once you have figured out what a deal looks like and you have picked a deal, right?
You're like, I want to make an
offer on this deal. I know it's a good deal. I know what my max allowable offer is. This is what I want to write it up as. This is how you do it.
I think you, number one, determine who's going to write it. Do you have a realtor friend that's going to write it for you that you've been already working with? And you would know that by now, right? Or are you going to contact the listing agent to represent you and write your offer as well?
Right. So 2 different ways. I think those are very important to notate because a lot of times you're going to be working...
What's the benefits? Yeah.
Right. A lot of times you're going to be working with a realtor who sets you up on what is called a drip campaign with certain filters that are put into the MLS, needs major repair, tear down, contractor special, and those properties are being sent to you daily by this realtor. If you find the property from that, then most likely you're going to use that realtor to write your offer up, right? There's a whole nother strategy where you're finding properties that you want and you contact the listing agent and you ask them to represent you. You say, hey, I am unrepresented. I want to make an offer on this property. Can you do a dual representation?
And what's the benefits of that?
I mean, there's a ton of benefits for the realtor, right, on that side, because then they can get commissions on both sides of the sale. Traditionally, they're only going to get commission on
one side,
the selling side,
yeah,
right? But if they're representing you as well,
Yeah.
So it makes them a little more incentivized to push your offer through, right?
But always remember that when you have dual representation, the realtor's obligation is always to the seller.
Right.
So just know that yes, they're representing you in your interest, but if it comes down to it, they're always going to go with what the seller's needs, wants, protections are.
Yeah. So I think those are the two ways to write it. And then you get down to the nitty gritty. You're like, all right, what has to go into the offer? What kinds of things are you talking about?
Okay. Well, before that though, right? At the same time, I feel like you should have been cultivating conversations and relationships with hard money lenders. You should have been reaching out to them, talking to them, asking them questions. What are their rates and terms? What do they need from you in the event that you do get a deal? Can you request proof of funds? So write that down. That having a hard money lender that you can shoot an email or a text and say, yo, dude, I need a proof of funds. I'm making an offer. That's going to be your best friend. So that's why I bring that up, because that comes into an offer. And a lot of the times when you submit on the MLS, they want the offer submitted with a proof of funds, that you have the funds or the ability to close.
To get the funds.
To close on the deal.
Yeah. Okay.
So those should be happening at the same time. Cultivate those relationships with hard money. Then it goes down to earnest money deposits, also known as EMD. Inspection period, purchase price, close of escrow, and an extension.
Right. And then there's all kinds of other things in between, like a termite inspection.
Yeah. That's in
survey.
Yeah.
Like all of those things too.
Yeah. So us as investors, when we first started, we waived nothing, and you should not waive anything if you are not experienced and aren't at that comfort level, so where you know what to look for without a contractor being present. But all of that kind of happens during your inspection period. I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, a 10-day inspection period is pretty safe. It's long, so anywhere between 5 to 10 days.
I would say 7 to 10 days.
Okay, for an inspection period.
Yep.
So what happens during an inspection period?
So traditionally, during your inspection period, it's also called a J1.
Mm-hmm.
You will have a home inspector, like a licensed home inspector.
And the realtor should be able to point you in a direction. They should have a list of those.
Tons of them, right? Will come into the property and do a full inspection on all of the systems.
Yeah, foundation, right? Plumbing, electrical, roof.
Everything that they can see.
Yeah.
Windows, like
all of
floors, like termite, like everything, right?
It's just really safe to get that, so you know as much as you can what you're buying. And those are a couple $100. And they give you a full report.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do inspections anymore, so I don't know exactly how much they
are.
But
I'm trying to remember. They're between $500 and $800.
Yeah,
I want to say
like 800 now or something.
But and honestly, that's worth every penny when you're first getting started, because you can meet the inspector there after, like, they do their inspection of the home. You meet them there. With COVID restrictions being lifted, you can do it in person again, which is so much better. And they walk you around the property, literally, and point out all of these things. So you're getting educated on what to look for on houses and what red flags are in the process. So you're paying for education.
Yeah, education, and as well as making sure you know exactly what you're buying.
Yeah,
right?
It's not as much as can be foreseen is caught.
Right. And so what you also have the ability to do in the J1, right? There's a couple things that you can do. You can still cancel the contract. If, say, your inspector comes in there and they're like, oh my gosh, the foundation is like so bad.
And it wasn't disclosed, like, on the listing.
And it wasn't something that you had accounted for when you analyzed the deal. Or so you could cancel the contract in that situation. Or you could renegotiate
a lower
with the seller.
Price.
Yeah, right.
For X, Y, and Z.
Right, because of this on the inspection. The benefit of all of when it happens in the J1 period, you still, if the contract is canceled, have the ability to get your earnest money deposit back.
That's a good caveat to EMD.
Right.
So EMD is what can essentially be any dollar amount. It can be $1 to solidify a contract, what's written. So it's money that gets put into escrow, you deposit it, and it says, I'm serious about buying this house. I'm going to put this in. And it's when you're off market, it's a lot easier to have lower EMDs. When you're on market, I feel like the standard for us
Hawaii and our price point
is about $10,000.
Yeah.
So you do 5 at the beginning when you first, on like day 1 of your contract. You get you are within 24 hours of signing and having an executed purchase and sale agreement. You go and you submit your first half of your earnest money. So
initial earnest money deposit.
So in this case, let's say we're working with 10,000, it's 5,000, and then you have your 10-day J1. During that 10-day, if all things go well, you would submit the second earnest money deposit of 5,000, totaling and completing your EMD of 10K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on and off market sale, just
little caveat.
Shits and giggles. Yeah.
Shits and giggles.
Shits and giggles.
Okay.
Normally our EMDs are right around 1% of the total purchase price. So if we're buying a house for $500,000, which you can't do in Hawaii, but just for mathematical
I mean,
ease.
Condos and
What is our
townhomes.
earnest money deposit on that house?
Is this a math question?
Yeah.
Are you quizzing me? $5,000.
Wrong.
500. Sorry.
That I shouldn't have asked you that question.
$500.
Yes. Ding, 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 ding. So
I always think in 10% terms.
yeah, I know. It's all good. But so yes, off-market properties are a little different, but on-market properties in Hawaii, 10 grand is the norm.
No, I was so right. 500,000 times 1% is $5,000.
No.
It is, right?
Is it?
I'm right. Fuckers over here trying to make me think I'm stupid. Okay, 500,000 times 10% is 50,000.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. Thanks, babe.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not stupid.
Okay, so X that whole thing that we just said because we don't even do 1%.
No,
We
but it's
do-
market standard. Can you just quiz
I don't know if it's a market standard.
in off market? No, I mean like I feel like it's a good rule of thumb.
It might not be. It's not something I would be comfortable with sharing.
Okay, so X the 1%.
Dude, but I feel like I've heard that like
No.
100 million times.
We have,
Yeah. Because we would never put $5,000 down on an off-market sale.
No.
So
I mean, it depends on. We've put 50, so
it is super subjective. But
So-
anyway, keep going.
the caveat though is like really what is important to the seller, whether you're on market or off market. Do they want us on market? I feel like 10K, 5K is pretty standard. Off market, your EMD is as low as you can get it, right? But it's your seller's comfort level. So if your seller wants a lot more, it's a conversation you have to have. We've had sellers want $50,000 EMD, and we've done it. Will we do it all the time? Absolutely not. That's not what we like to do. You never want to tie up that amount of money in a deal from day one. But if you have to, and it's worth this, the juice is worth the squeeze, then it's a conversation.
Yeah, I think normally when your seller wants like a super crazy, outrageous EMD, they just don't trust you.
Yeah.
That you're gonna
So you
close the
haven't
sale.
built enough.
You haven't
rapport.
built enough rapport. You haven't built enough credibility. That being said,
We're going off market. Let's come back to
Yeah.
on market.
That being said, though,
Yeah.
some people are just crazy. And
touche.
no matter how much credibility you provide, they're still going to
It'll never be good enough. But yeah, so that's EMD. It's needed and necessary, and it can become a really big deal if you miss a first or second deposit of an EMD. So make sure, and that's what your realtor's for, if you're using one, to make to remind you, so you have all these deadlines. When you're working with on-market MLS realtor involved sellers, you have to make sure you are hitting every deadline in that contract.
Right.
And you should, whether you're off market as well. I'm not saying don't, but I'm just saying it's way more stringent.
Right.
So we talked about EMD, we talked about inspection period, closing, a close of escrow time frame. For us, we do 30 business days.
We implemented 30 business days more recently. When we started putting offers in, we actually started at 28.
I don't know.
Yeah, and never mentioned business days at all. So
I don't recommend that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with your offers on market. You're trying to be
as competitive as possible,
appealing and competitive as possible. Normally, your offers are going to be a little bit lower, right?
An investor, yes.
If you can remove as much contingencies and make the offer clean and
easy
and close very quickly,
yes,
then you're going to be more competitive in the pool of offers.
And as a seller, you and I are buyers and we're sellers. We look for those types of offers. Very clean, very easy, quick closing, qualified buyers. You know, we look for all that. So we can speak from both sides.
Right.
That, yeah, whatever you can waive, you should. I don't recommend waiving a lot in the beginning. And I do recommend giving yourself as much time as you can to get all your ducks in a row during that escrow process, which is why I implemented the 30 business day thing for us to buy more time.
Totally. But what we're seeing as a competitive offer in today's market, it's 30 days.
It's 30 days.
Right. 30 days.
If you have cash, you need to close in like 2 weeks.
It should give you enough time to close your hard money loan. And you should. Hopefully you have a good hard money lender. But 30 day, and you're still competitive in the eyes of the seller.
Correct. With that said, a very common thing that is implemented in all MLS or any purchase and sale agreement is an option to extend. You usually have one unilateral right to extend, and the days that you put in there is kind of...
It ranges.
Yeah. I've seen as much as 10. We're using our unilateral on one of our MLS deals right now.
Right.
And it's 10 days.
And I mostly see this on MLS, not off market.
Yeah, not off market. I feel like with off market, you've really built that relationship with your seller. So
if something comes up, you can just...
It's a conversation. Right. Versus when you're dealing with realtors, it's a lot more contractual and less warm and fluffy. It's very... cut and dry, cold is business versus off market is relationship. So yeah, there's an extension. So it's kind of like a safety net, your boat you can jump into if shit's going wrong.
Life raft.
It's really,
yeah. That's what a boat that you can jump into if that shit going wrong is called.
Yeah. Well, if your ship is sinking, you can jump in your life raft.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's what your extension is. And you'll get that. You can always use it. It's only one time unilateral. You can't use it more than once. And then once you've exceeded that, you're kind of forfeiting your contract. And at that point, you lose your EMD.
Right.
That doesn't mean you can't try and get it back. If your seller and the realtor is not willing to do so, they have every right to keep it.
Yeah.
Any other things you can think of? Yeah, and then so you also, like if you're selling a property, you have a certain amount of times to produce a property disclosure statement, which says everything you know about the property. If you're buying on the MLS, they have a certain amount of days for you. And it's normally during J1 that they provide you a document and you have to review it and you have to sign off on whether you approve it or don't approve it. That's also your out clause, way out too, is if you're like, yo, I do not like this property disclosure, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few things along the way that can come up, but I think the important thing to remember here is
this is just from our experience. We are not licensed real
Realtors,
estate agents.
Right, exactly. So
we are investors.
That segues into what I'm going to say is if you're you have to find a realtor that is investor friendly.
Yes.
And lean on them. Right?
How do you find those agents though?
I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to find them, but
The best way, I feel like.
okay, what's your best way?
Come to a Deals and Aloha meetup that is filled with rooms full of investor friendly agents.
Totally. I think that is the best way. I mean, obviously reaching out to other investors and seeing if they can refer you.
Yeah.
So anytime you can get a referral, that's going to be the best kind of person to work with, right?
Yeah.
There's also other ways, but
so when we first started, how we found our first investor friendly agent was through a family friend. And I reached out to her, and then you and I took her out to lunch and just explained exactly what we were trying to do and what's in it for her, how it benefited her.
How you're going to bring value to them. Lead with value.
Always. And I think she wasn't necessarily an investor friendly agent, but because we led with that value and explained it very clearly what was in it for her, we converted her to be our investor friendly agent, and we've done several deals with her.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's just one way.
Yeah, that's
is
one
reach
way.
out to people, the realtors you already know.
Totally. But those investor friendly agents are going to have a really good pulse on the market. They're going to know what needs to be in a contract to make it very attractive. They're also going to know, what kind of EMD you need, like everything that you could need, you can lean on them for that.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's just break it down one more time, very simply. What are the things that you need in an offer? So the
first, you need a realtor. Second, you need a hard money lender that can provide you a proof of funds. Third, you need an EMD. Fourth, you need an inspection period. 5, closing time frame. 6, extension. Oh, that just brought up another one. When the realtor, it's very important that your realtor understands, whoever's writing the offer understands that you're using hard money. You cannot put cash, because then they're going to ask you for a bank account with your name on it, with the purchase price in cash.
Liquid cash in a bank account with your name on it.
Right. So the best thing to do is just say, I'm using hard money, and connect the realtor to the hard money lender so they can have a conversation and hear directly from the source what hard money is, how it works, why it's liquid at the close of escrow, all that stuff.
Right. How it's not a traditional source of lending. So this is another key for why you want to have an investor-friendly realtor as well.
Because they'll understand it.
Your realtor is going to be able to explain, because this is what happens, right? They look, as a seller, they're looking at all these offers, and the agent that's representing that seller is going to verify what they see on these contracts. So they're going to call the listing agent, they're going to call the lender, and they're going to make sure that you're going to be able to buy this house. Yeah. So if you have a realtor that has no freaking clue what hard money is, then they're not going to be able to explain it very well, right?
No, so and it could cost you
it will cost you the deal, right? Because they're putting down that
it costs us deals.
Right. They're putting down that we're buying it cash. The seller thinks that it's cash, but it's not cash. It's hard money, and that needs to be conveyed and explained properly.
And if it's not, it will cost you the deal. It's cost us a couple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Live and learn.
I think that explains most of it.
Yeah. It's kind of a tough thing to talk about.
We should just get you know what? We'll bring on a realtor. We're already going to do realtors and talk about all of that.
Explaining it, or we talking to a realtor about it, like what goes into a good offer.
We'll do that. Yeah.
That I think would be way more valuable.
Totally.
But I have to shishi.